Good evening and welcome to the program. I'm especially glad to be on the air tonight after a long day of, well, let's say, tall technology hell. But I got it thanks to the people who helped me do this. I know it's not a big deal to you folks out there, but boy, we battle this technology all the time. There's so many things that can go wrong on a broadcast. You think a football plays difficult to put together. This has to all go right. And we're grateful for those people who worked furiously, including my son and executive producer, Brendan Martin, who's kind of feel under the weather tonight. Brendan, get better. But I want to just shout out to people who helped me down. The guy from Wow TV, a technician named Jamie, who came in and worked his tail off and got done what it took 1 year to get finished. And tonight you should be able to hear us loud and clear. You should be able to not get any buffering. You should be able to get the cleanest broadcast we have ever done, hopefully, thanks to Jamie and others. So that bit of business out of the way. Before we go to breaking news in just a moment, Franz Beard will join us momentarily. We got an offensive coordinator. You all been wanting it, and Billy slid one under the door just when you thought he was not going to. Now, this could be a lot of window dressing because not a lot's going to change, but Russ Callaway is going to be your new offensive coordinator. All that we'll talk about in just a minute. And I want to talk to you about a new project I'm working on. I'm very proud and excited about doing on something, a couple of projects. One of them on sports writers, and one of them is a book I'm working on with the great Carlton Reese. So I'm feeling good tonight, folks. I hope you are. And not only that, you get the number 2 team in the nation to cheer for and lots of good stuff in baseball, softball. So stay tuned. I'm Buddy Martin. We're coming your way in just a moment. Right here on the Buddy Martin Show. Tell your friends and neighbors to come join us and take part in what we do here 4 nights a week with our friends and neighbors. And friends will be here. And we'll have Coach Lauren Meadows and Rob Brown, who usually does just the mornings, but tonight has joined us because Ben Troop has taken the night off. So that's what's happening here. We hope you're going to be able to enjoy the program as we are. Stand by.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Good evening and welcome to the program. Glad to be with you tonight. It's been a long day. Hope your day went okay. Kind of crappy weather up this way. We're getting crappy weather all over the place. But we're back for a wrap up. And tonight we got breaking news for those of you who haven't heard. I imagine you have. Florida tight ends coach, assistant offensive coordinator, Russ Callaway, expected to be promoted to offensive coordinator. This was reported by Pete Thamel, a terrific reporter who put the news out. He says, as you might remember, he started off at UF an off-field role in 22 and has been promoted 3 times since that time. So he'll remain the tight ends coach in the position room. His responsibilities for the offense will grow. Florida coach Billy Naples remains the play caller. That's the key thing. Like I told you, he's never going to give that up. Callaway is 37. He worked as the offensive coordinator at Samford, not Stanford, from 2016 and 19, and so pretty highly regarded. So on the program now, we'll get Franz Beard's take on that, along with our illustrious panel of people, and get your take if you want to join in and weigh in on it. Right? So looks like it's a fait accompli. The offensive coordinator coach, Russ Callaway, being promoted to the offensive coordinator. Good job reporting by Pete Thamel, who seems to dig out stories none of us get. So So we got a lot to talk about tonight with the basketball team, and this team I've announced this week. I have a bromance with this basketball team in Florida. They're so much fun to watch. They're so talented, so deep, and it's enjoyable to go to watch them play. And they play so hard to give us all the things that's been lacking in college sports with football. With sort of a feeling that these prima donnas are being paid, right or wrong. I'm not against them getting paid. And the fact is that people are complaining about getting done for all the time for money. And you hear another story every day about an NIL deal, and that's good, but let's get our focus on something else. The basketball team has done just that. They have been fantastic. You never hear about NIL. Do you see these? They got 10 guys that can put on the floor. And there's guys that could start other places. I mean, Denzel Aberdeen could have gone last year with good reason and start. He's been a terrific sixth or seventh man this year, and now next year it's going to be his team along with others. So that's a good thing going on. So that's some of the stories we're going to work on tonight. Let's go over to our orange and blue room and dig up our good friend. Let's see what he's wearing tonight. I bet he's wearing some orange or blue. That's my guess. The great Francis Beard. Here, let's see if we can find him. Okay, I can't get. Oh, there you are. How you doing, Francis? How are you, buddy?
Lavender tonight.
Lavender. Remember that song? Lavender blue, dilly dilly. Lavender green. Remember that?
Nope.
Oh, you're just too young. What can I say? Okay, you got it. You got it. We didn't think he really was going to have an offensive quarterback. We did. We know it's always going to be sort of a name only, name and name. But Russ Callaway, he was always working on that. He set it on the door. Pete Thamel dug it out, and he's going to be named, I guess, tomorrow, next day, as the offensive coordinator to the Florida Gators. Does that make any difference? Is this more window dressing? Billy will call the plays. Give us your assessment of this move.
Well, I think it's more, instead of necessarily being the play caller, it's more or less having a bigger part in the game plan. I think that's probably how it's going to work. He'll call some plays. You got to remember, when Dan Mullen was the offensive coordinator, Urban still called fairly good number of plays. Of course, Urban also gave credence to Billy Gonzalez slipping one in with his running backs coach. Also, it was always a thing where you had an offensive coordinator, but other people could chime in when necessary. And Billy calls the plays. He's the primary play caller for sure. But he does give a little bit of room in there for his other guys to contribute. I think the biggest contribution, though, for Russ Callaway is going to be in the play scheming, and I think that's a big deal, right there, because your head coach can't be sitting there writing out a game plan for everybody. So I think that's where we're going to see the biggest change, and Russ Callaway will have a bigger hand in the game plan.
Okay, good points. Is there a radio on where you are? I hear something going on.
Hang on a second. Hang on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Turn something down.
All right, Francis. While I was doing that, I don't remember it quite that way. And I was privileged, and I'm not bragging. I happened to be working on a book at this time. And part of that duty and responsibility was I could actually go on the headset and listen to the plays being called. And I remember distinctly several games that year that were pretty tight at some time or the other. And I heard the exchange between Urban and his staff, and it was always Dan Mullen. And one thing Dan Mullen did, I will say, he stood up to Urban. I heard him say it many times. And Dan would say, "You want to take a shot here?" I mean, throw it downfield. And he always went and everybody said, "I think we should stick to our running game." No, coach, we got to take a shot. And the biggest one I remember specifically. Remember the flood in Tallahassee where Tim
Oh yeah.
Tebow got the red face and all that sort of stuff? I heard that pregame discussion on the headset with Urban and Dan
Dan.
Mullen. And Dan and Urban said, we're gonna have to really watch it tonight. It's like a foot of water out there. We just gotta run the ball and keep the ball, and be safe. And Dan said, no, coach, we gotta run the game plan. Well, we gotta be a little no, coach, we gotta run the game plan. He actually defied him almost. And that was that little bit of edge that they got sometimes. Like if you saw them run the ball, especially the great play where Tebow carried 5 guys in the end zone. But they also could throw the football in water. And I'm literally kidding. Your feet were covered with water, and it was red paint and stuff all the way. That was a mess. That was the most water I've
That was the Ultimate Warrior game.
It was.
Tebow came out looking like the wrestler.
No. What's
Warrior.
What's the famous warrior movie that they both something?
Oh, you're talking about Braveheart.
Braveheart. Yeah. I wrote that out. I wrote that.
The Braveheart game.
I actually called it that there that night, the Braveheart game. Yeah. And it was what was interesting about that game, we won't digress too much, but is that we couldn't see that face because Tebow didn't turn our way. He sort of turned back with his back and walked away. And only when it came on TV did we see it. And it looked like blood. I thought it was blood. Oh my gosh. And he was just loving every minute of it, being a Braveheart. That's when Braveheart struck me. I mean, others, I'm sure, wrote it, but I wrote it that night. So anyway, yeah. So we'll see how it works out. But back to the move on the offensive line. He's kind of done everything that he said he was going to do now, except I guess the special teams, right?
Yeah, and let me throw one more thing in about Callaway too. Russ Callaway is a talented young coach, and it was pretty important for him to give him a title to justify a raise, for example, and that helps Russ Callaway, who's going to be somebody's head coach someday. Really good football coach, and a football guy all his life. His dad's Neil Callaway, who well-known, highly respected offensive line coach that goes back in the SEC 30, 40 years probably. So he grew up in film rooms, and he grew up on sidelines. He's just a football guy, kind of like Billy. Billy's dad was a coach. Billy was a football guy from the beginning because his dad, he was breaking down film with his dad when he's 10, 11 years old. So Russ Callaway, same thing, and a valuable guy. I keep wondering, Buddy, when he's going to start coaching quarterbacks, because he was a record-setting quarterback at Samford for Chris Hatcher. Chris Hatcher's a heck of a football coach. And Russ called plays for that offense and too for Chris Hatcher. And if Chris Hatcher lets you call the plays, you know your stuff.
Yeah, good point. Well, you can never have too much offensive firepower. And then, of course, you got Billy Gonzalez. I don't care what people say. He's just about as good an offensive wide receiver coach as I know of. And one of the hallmarks that people forget is you don't play for Billy unless you block. Those wide receivers, as talented as they are, and they are talented, when they come, they're expected to block.
Oh, yeah.
And they do block a lot. So, and I
Ricky Pearsall says he's the number 1 draft pick of the 49ers because of Billy Gonzalez. Said if it hadn't been for Billy, he would have never, ever, ever gotten that.
I disagree with him. I think that catch sealed the deal that he made. What a catch. It may have been the greatest catch I've ever seen by a Florida Gator. Incredible. And I got it somewhere on a picture. But yeah, no, he did say that. So, all right, let's put this on hold. Rob Brown will join us here in a minute. I want to get back to basketball. We had a chance to get with you last night and pick your brain about a lot of things. So many good things happened to this basketball team. It's so exciting to watch. We tossed around the questions, and we will do it again tonight about can they play 10 men? Hengel around. He may be the next. They've had 9 guys scoring double figures, 9, and probably Hengel will make 10. They've had 4 or 5 straight wins over ranked teams. I forget. I could go on forever. But aside from that, what I love about this team is they brought the joy back to college sports, and they make it fun again. I can't wait to see them play again. It's Saturday night, right?
They play Saturday at 6.
Yeah.
And that's at LSU.
Yeah.
And LSU is playing well right now. They won their last 2 games, but Florida's going to beat them. I mean, they really are. The Gators are going to beat them, and they're going to beat Georgia up there. And both LSU now is 14-12. And I think if they can win 3 of their last 5 games, they could make the NIT. But here's the thing: they're 1-10. They're 1-10 against teams in the quad 1, the top 50 of the net rankings. They're ranked number 78. Their last 5 games are all against ranked teams: Florida, Tennessee, Mississippi State, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. Yeah. This is a team that's a beatdown, looking for a place to happen. Florida will beat them. The Georgia game is going to be interesting because Mike White needs a win.
He wants to get there. He sure does. Yeah. What better can you get down the Gators? Let me just break you into real fast and say I'll do a spot. Hold that thought for a second, Brent. I don't think you have to say the whole hour, but we'd love for you to. Thank you. Let's go back. We also got Rob Brown standing by. Let me tell you first about our friends at Meldon Law. They just don't get any better than this. There are people who support you, support the university. Good people. Jeffrey is one of the best people I know, and his son, of course, well, too. And they do so many good things in the community. They love being Gators. They love living in Gainesville. And they have 4 locations now to serve you. They're expanding just enough to serve North Central Florida, Ocala, Gainesville, Williston, Lake City. And they're there to talk law, but they also will talk sports with you. They're the only official law firm, injury law firm of the University of Florida. They do it right. They won't back down. Meldon Law. With that, let's bring in the guy who does the morning show. It's like he's the Today Show. I'm the David Letterman Show. That would be Rob Brown. What's up, Rob? We don't hear you.
Sorry about that. I'd love to be Letterman. That was must-watch TV, man. Growing up, 10:30 at night. Brother Theodore, Biff, and he had more characters in there. But man, I'm listening to y'all's conversation and getting a text from my son who just landed up in New York and it's up there for some meetings. And I'm going, hell, he may be living up there, so I go up there and visit. Maybe the Letterman. But who would be a great replacement for Letterman at night would be Paul Feinbaum.
No, he wouldn't be able to do that job. And I think Feinbaum does good at what he did. Paul Feinbaum is exactly where he needs to be. He gets on national TV 4 hours a day, and he does the morning show. And he, you know how hard it is to do a 4-hour show. He does 5 of them, and in football season he does another one, and it goes on. I think Feinbaum, like him or not, he's amazing at what he does. And I hear what you're saying. I have great respect for Paul, and I love his new house. Sounds great. I talked to him about it the other day. That's not too far from up there where you are in Sylacauga, right? Where your friend is?
No. Well, he's going to be living in Mountain Brook. And of course, we're in Memphis, and everybody's excited. Ronnie Sanders from AU Undercover, we do the show with on Wednesdays now, and Brendan is good friends with Paul, and he said I think they're going to build him a studio at Jock's Radio so he can do his show.
That's not happened okay yet, but that's what they'd like to do. But for sure, All right, so Rob, so let me bring you into this conversation with friends. We're just talking about Florida's new offensive coordinator. You probably haven't heard much about it. Is it cold up there, Rob? Yeah.
It is 8 degrees outside. I just had to take the dog outside.
Yeah.
I
can see it now. I'm sorry, brother.
It snows everywhere.
It's at least that cold where Francis is. It's 88 where Francis is. But anyway, just saying.
Neil Callaway is the new offensive coordinator.
Neil Callaway's
kid? And Neil Callaway is a big Auburn guy. from way back when.
Yeah, Southwest High School. I remember he played at Alabama. Neil, man, he was tough as nails. His son will be just like him. I mean, one thing, he'll know how to recruit. But again, Florida recruits itself.
He played and coached for Chris Hatcher too, up at Sanford. And I told Buddy earlier, I said, if Chris Hatcher gives you the reins to his offense, you got to be a pretty sharp character.
Chris was at Valdosta State, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I know a lot. Shoney, one of my good friends, went to Auburn with me, knows that lives in Valdosta very well. You're getting a guy that knows the territory. I mean,
he's already there. He's been there a long time. He's just been promoted. He's been helping call the plays, and he's been a tight end coach for 3 years.
Yeah.
But the word Pete Thamel broke the story tonight is that he's going to be named offensive coordinator, and that's not going to change a whole lot. I mean, he was already doing a lot of that, and there's no way Billy gives that up. We think it's a pretty good move, far as we know. But you know what? Like I said, this is a basketball school now. Okay.
Yeah,
it's a basketball school. And Francis, I love this team. You got to really, really love this team.
Well, the thing I love about them is the fact that they're so reminiscent of the 2006 and 2007 teams in that they really don't care who scores the points or who gets the rebounds. The only thing they care for is that final score. And when you get 5 guys who have the ability, who have the talent, who have that kind of attitude, you really have something good going. And I give Todd Golden a lot of credit for figuring out how to structure a roster. You look at some of these guys that go with all one and dones, or they go too heavy in the portal and everything like this, and they wind up with dysfunctional teams. Correct. And each of these 3 teams that Todd's had has gotten better as far as the team chemistry and everything, to the point that I don't know that there's a team with better chemistry from top to bottom of the roster than Florida, except maybe the one Bruce Pearl has up there at Auburn. And you could make a point that Auburn is number 1 in the country and Florida's 1A. And you'd have to give the Gators credit, because they went up there to Auburn and the pupil beat the teacher and whooped him bad, in fact.
With just 9 points, they led it about 30 at one point. It was a 9-point win, but they did still be number 1 team in the nation going into there and beating them in their arena, and really read them a lot worse than that. And I don't know what that means, but somehow, Rob, why some of your colleagues don't remember that game? I heard a question asked last night on, I forget who it was, Jimmy Dykes. Somebody asked Jimmy Dykes, what do you think is the biggest road win this year in the SEC? That's a no-brainer. You don't remember Florida beating Auburn by 9 points at their place? How can anything else compete with that, Rob? And I know you're an Auburn guy and it hurts you, but still, Pearl is hard to beat anytime, especially on this team, especially there in the arena there.
Now, you have to give Florida credit. Auburn didn't have a bad game. Florida didn't let them have a good game. Florida took everything away that made Auburn a really good team. I think those 2 teams, I listened to the broadcast last night on the Auburn Network with Andy Burcham and Coach Randall Dickey. After the game, Bruce Pearl asked about this SEC race. He said, look, I don't see anybody beating Florida the rest of the way. He gives credit to every team out there. Auburn winning at Alabama, that was big. Hell, I think Auburn beat Alabama twice. Alabama went on the road, scored 98 points at Missouri, but gave up 110. And Franz has been talking about this. He telegraphed it weeks ago. He said, Micah Hanlon, he comes back. That's 5 big guys. That's 25 tall fouls Florida has to give. Yeah. They don't want to give them away, but then you get Walter Clayton Jr. the way he's playing. Elijah Martin. That's a team you see the similarities? And I'm not saying it because I'm on here on the Gator show, and I'm an Auburn guy. I'm going to be fair. I will slam Auburn to the turf. I'd fire one of my own kids that worked for me if they weren't working hard too. That's the way I am. But they're so similar. Those Florida guys, they're having more fun. They're mirror images in a lot of ways, and they dominated Auburn in the jungle. You have to give them credit for that. So you could go either or. The win in Alabama was big. And then, God, look at Missouri. Third win over a top 5 team. Franz, you're killing it. Yeah. Dennis Gates, is he coach of the year in the SEC?
I think Todd Golden's the coach of the year, but I think they're gonna give it to Dennis Gates because he was 0-18 last year.
Yeah. I meant to say Dennis Gates. I didn't. National coach of the year, Todd Golden, maybe, or Bruce Pearl.
Well, I think Todd is, because you look at the fact that he's gone 5-0 down at least one starter every single game for 5, and through a not so easy stretch. He's down Elijah Martin, who I think is the best perimeter defender in the SEC, against Auburn. No big deal. I mean, you look at this. I mean, Auburn had trouble getting threes off, in spite of the fact that Florida's best perimeter defender is not in the game. Then they got before that, Vanderbilt, they beat Vanderbilt minus Clayton. Then they're without Elijah Martin for 2 games. Then Condon's down for all but 30 seconds. And then Sam Alexis, who's his backup, gets hurt. So they're down 2 guys. So what do? They beat Mississippi State decisively on the road. And then Micah comes back. And I got to tell you what, you look at what he's doing, and it's a different type of defense that he's providing. He walls up the rim, that area around the rim. But the other thing that I love about this Florida team is you watch big guys who can get out there and move their feet and cover.
That they can.
Cover the small guys.
Yeah.
The other day, I pointed out, I made it my lead in my story. In fact, on that most recent win, Ruben Chignello, who is 6'10" and 255, gets out there on Jeremiah Fears, goes step for step, bounce for bounce with him, cuts off his angle to the rim, and they start out on the left side of the key. He cuts out his angle to the rim and forces Fears in frustration to turn the ball over. You don't see 6'10" guys or 7'1" guys, because you saw Hen Lockton basically doing the same thing. Tommy Hawk, you see him do that all the time. But when Condon's able and when Alexis is able, they all do that. Florida's big guys can cover out on the perimeter, and nobody else has even one big guy. Well, maybe one, because Janai Broome can. But Florida may have the only team that's got multiple guys who are 6'9" or better who can cover out on the perimeter.
Here's a question for both of y'all. How many of Florida's players are transfers from another school? I know Walter Clayton Jr. played at Iona.
Yeah, Clayton played at Iona. Chignello played at Wazoo. Let's see, who's the other one?
Martin played at FAU.
Elijah Martin played at Florida Atlantic. Will Richards started out at Belmont. He's been here all 3 years. But those are the transfers.
Yeah.
But you look, Will Richard has been here all 3 years, so it's not like he's really a transfer. It's like he came here with Todd. But Elijah Martin, Ruben Chignello, Sam Alexis is a transfer. He comes off the bench. But it's a carefully constructed roster. You got 13 guys. Hen Lockton transferred in from Marshall. But he's a multi-year guy. These are not one and done transfers. These are, with the exception of Elijah Martin, and what he brought to this team is a mature attitude on defense. This is a guy that comes out there. I don't know if you watched the game there Tuesday night.
Yeah. So
Elijah Martin is defending a 6'10" guy in the paint, and the guy can't move on him. So you're talking 6'2", 195, who looks like he should be playing strong safety in the National Football League. Yeah. But he can defend all 5 positions. Tell me a 6'2" guy in the country that can do that. I don't know.
As much as I love this team, I do. And, and Billy Donovan had the word for it, and later Nick Saban stole it from him. It's poison. This team is guts, guile, hustle, bunch of 3 stars playing like they're 4.5 stars. And he wants to win every game by 30. He said he wants to win them all by 30. And it's the ultimate hustle team. They're hustle guys. You put a ball on the floor, they'll all dive for like a dog and a hungry dog and a bone. And I love that about this team. It's so much fun to watch. But it could go away quickly if suddenly one day they got thinking they were really good. Because this team is all about effort, and you start to thinking, and Todd Golden won't let them. He keeps after him. France, you know that. You've been around him. He's just not going to let him do that.
Well, the same thing happens with Bruce, and you can tell the Bruce Pearl. You can tell the Bruce Pearl influence in the way they do things. Now, they run things totally different because Bruce is famous. They press on the inbounds play, and if they don't get the steal, they drop back. But that whole press is designed to do one thing, and that's to make you get indecisive and maybe throw the ball away 3 or 4 times in a game. But then they drop back, and Todd will press, and the Gators have if you notice, they're very strategic in how and when they decide to
talk about that little baby press they put on there in the second half almost every time. I love that. And somehow the teams have a problem with it. They get more turnovers. There was one point who they're playing. The other team couldn't get the ball across the court.
They had that. Carolina. Auburn had that problem with them.
Yeah,
I mean, they put that
it
press
befuddles them. It's something. What does that do to teams?
Well, as a former coach, I loved pressing people because, particularly if you can take a team, for example, that likes going down the court and hammering it on the inside, and all of a sudden you force them to play at a tempo they don't want. That's big. If you're trying to also get your guys into a tempo that, for example, when they play Alabama wants to run it up and down the floor. Todd does too, but sometimes you run that press to get your guys going, to get the juices flowing, etc. The big thing that he does with the press, however, is he attacks the ball, and then they're going to try to force a pass to a diagonal pass that they can pick up. Against most presses, the middle of the floor is open, but when you got a guy coming straight at you, the middle of the floor is really hard to see. So the obvious, I'm going this way and I'm being forced this way. Here comes a guy. This guy's coming straight at me. The diagonal pass sometimes seems like the ideal pass, but it's the longer pass. It's the easier one to intercept. And Todd figured that stuff out. He knows I don't know of another coach that's bigger into analytics than he is. The other night he's talking about, we know that's a 1.8% that he's going to do that. And I'm going, oh, come on, Todd, talk English so I can write it about guys.
Oh, you old codgers. You old get off my lawn guys don't knowing about those analytics.
I speak fluent. I speak fluent analytics, but trust me, I may have one person who reads me that can figure that out.
Rob, you use analytics in your business?
No. I mean, you look at trends and 200-day moving averages in the stock market, and you also realize not everybody can't be right at the same time. And so sometimes you have to take a contrarian attitude, but what you try to do is get in the way of the money. I'll say this, the similarities in the 2 and the 3 stars on that Florida roster. I mean, look at Auburn. Janai Broome, Tampa Catholic High School, went to Morehead State. Then he ends up at Auburn. Chad Baker Mazzara, he's done a lot of acting. I think he went to acting school.
All right.
He's. I love the guy, but he's got to get his shit under control. He draws unnecessary attention, and it just needs to be a player. But you look at Denver Jones, you look at Chaney Johnson, look at these guys, and look at Florida's roster. Y'all just went over it. I think the days of the one and done, that is over. You're not going to. Guys like that don't buy in to the team concept. They're over there sitting on the sidelines if they're not in the game, looking at their stat sheet for their next NIL deal. Todd Golden succeeds because he loves his players, and he doesn't come in and say, when I get my guys here, we're going to win. He's like what Bruce Pearl said. These are my guys. That's how you win. Buddy talked about it on the show the other day. The great, sales training. Was it Art? Were you talking about Art Linkletter?
No. The guy, I think we're talking about Dale Carnegie.
Dale Carnegie.
He was about Carnegie. The guys.
Norman Vincent Peale.
Norman Vincent Peale was Power of Positive Thinking, the first self-help books, and the whole thing of Dale Carnegie was how to win friends and influence
influence neighbors.
No, it wasn't neighbors. It wasn't neighbors. But Freddie Wiebe actually has those courses in Gainesville and puts them on 3 or 4 times a year. How to win friends and influence people. That's what it was.
And I have something I say every morning: junk in, junk out, positive in, positive out. I will not allow negative thoughts to enter my mind. You can't do it.
You can start. I think that you start with gratitude. Start the day with gratitude. Thank you, Lord, for this day and his food and his coffee and his place and this day. Let me stop right there because we're going to have to come to pay a bill. Come back to it in a minute. I want you guys to think about this a little bit and about this team, about what's happening. And here's another thing. Sports writers, the dinosaurs, the dodo bird, they're all gone. They're dying out. I am so happy and proud to be able to announce a project I'm going to be doing. And it had to do, I was on the interview a young kid the other day, and he wanted to be an intern. He wanted to write. Well, we don't get, most of them want to go be on the air. They don't want to write. This guy says he really wanted to write. So I called him up. We had about a half-hour interview. And I said, look, write me a half a page about who you are. Remember, I have 2 rules. Show up when you say you're going to show up and do what you say you're going to do. And I said, who do you read? He said, well, I don't know what you mean. I said, well, what writers do you read? Because, friends, if you want to write, you got to be able to read.
You better be a voracious reader.
And France Beer did that, and I did too, and we just loved it. Rob, you do to a lesser degree. You're not even a writer. But he said, well, I'll tell you. I said, who would you like to be? What writer? He said, well, I like Stephen A. Smith. I said, hello? Stephen A. Smith is not a writer. He was a writer years ago, but he's not now. He couldn't name me one writer that he knew, not one. Yet he wants to be a writer. And I don't mean to crush the kids because they don't know any better, but I got an idea on what can I do about this. I'm going to tell you about it after I get there telling you about Titan MRI. You guys can sign off. We expect Coach to be in there in just a minute. So Titan MRI and imaging, now Titan MRI and imaging is what it's called. They acquired high field MRI. Joe Coloria started high field MRI in 1997. Now he's back. Titan MRI and imaging now has 3 locations to serve you, 2 in Gainesville with its Park Avenue location, and now the Millennium Center and 1 in Lake City, serving all of Columbia County, and also 1 in Valdosta, and soon coming to Ocala. Titan MRI and imaging offers the same great customer service. They're now accept insurance, and you can go through a convenient self-pay options if you want to. You can get MRI, CT scans, X-rays, and ultrasounds, EG scheduling, and they make it more comfortable for you to get in those MRI cages and get it done. That's what big guys like Franz and I like to know. Don't let us be claustrophobic. Let us get in that thing, get that music on, and play, and get out of there. They'll do it for you. Check them out. They're a good group, and they're growing, and they're very, very popular. A lot of people right now. Titan MRI imaging. All right, guys. Before we go and get Lauren, who's standing by. In fact, let me bring Lauren on. I'll tell him the story as well. Coach Lauren Meadows, who joins us from, who knows? He may be in Paris. I never know where he is. All right, so guys, here was the deal. Good evening to you, Lauren. How you doing?
How you guys doing? Good to see everybody.
Good to see you. I was telling a story here, and I'm going to let you guys comment on it. Then we're going to go get your thoughts about Russ Callaway, Lauren. But so this young guy who said that, who's got a TV on?
That's me. Sorry.
Okay. I get. They complain to me when that happens.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry.
It's all right. It happens. So anyway, the idea is that this young guy didn't even know a writer's name. I thought to myself, that's heresy. That you don't know a single writer. I don't care if it's whoever it is, but have a writer in mind. And so I thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do a series of shows called The Sports Writers. And I've identified a dozen people in this country who have been or were or are really good sports writers. I'm going to have them on and talk about what their shape of the world is today, what they think about it, if they have any advice for young people. And it's not the purpose here's not to rip on the young people or get off my lawn guy, but just to teach them about this craft called sports writing and tell them what a typewriter was and explain to them what a press box is. Explain to them you're not in the press box to cheer. So I'm really proud of that project, and I'm going to do this with Carlton Reese, and we're going to do this and write about it too. So I'm excited. The Sports Writers coming soon to this channel. Lauren.
Yes, sir.
Russ Callaway.
Did I miss something? I've been out the loop a little bit. Enlighten me.
Yeah, you've been gallivanting around with that. He's the new offensive coordinator.
So he's the new offensive coordinator.
For those who don't know, Pete Thamel broke the story tonight that he is going to be named offensive coordinator, but Billy will keep the play calling responsibilities.
Okay,
now,
so
to me, it looks like there's no big difference, but time change,
money.
But he already has a hand on the offense. So give us your top of mind, and we've all shared ours. And
from a football standpoint, I think that if we talk just from the X and O's from that standpoint, it gives Russ Callaway, I guess, more responsibility from the day-to-day game planning to maybe free Coach Napier up to handle some of the other things that happen when you're a head coach at a place like Florida. But, I think that when you look at it from the game day standpoint, if Billy Napier is still going to be the primary play caller, then you pretty much have, it's kind of like an Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy situation where, you got a guy that's effective and has his place in practices and can be a voice. But at the end of the day, it's still Billy Napier. And so for those that are sometimes frustrated with the flow of the offense, the calls at certain points in time, well, it's still going to be, Billy Napier's deal. So I think it's one of those things where, it's good for Russ Callaway. Maybe he can impart some of the things that he was doing at Samford and other places and maybe bring some of that to enhance the offense. But at the end of the day, it's still Billy Napier calling the plays. So, I've always been fine with it. I think that, I wouldn't do it if I was a head coach, but it seems like Billy Napier really wants to hold on to the last say on the calls. So, he's going to stay the play caller. So, unfortunately, I don't think there's much to see here. And maybe it's just an opportunity to keep Russ Callaway in the fold and not losing.
Friends, I'm going to give you a chance to respond and let you go because you got to write tonight. I know, so I promise I wouldn't keep you up forever. And then Rob and the coach will finish it up here. But your response to what he said, not a big deal. right?
It's like I said, what he's going to end up doing is he's going to end up being more of a guy that gets the game plan together, and he'll contribute some of the play calling, but that's Billy's main thing. But he's going to be doing the game planning while Billy is wandering around doing what Ron Zook used to do, sprinting from station to station, etc., like that. Ron Zook drove me crazy. I got to tell you, Ben's not here to tell you about it, but Ron Zook wouldn't let people wouldn't let people sit on the sidelines. You had to stand because it was a work environment, and he would literally give them to a dead sprint to go from the defensive line to the safeties to the wide receivers. I mean, he's like crisscrossing the field. He must have, if he'd had a pedometer on him, he would have done 30,000 steps at every practice. I promise you. Ron's a good guy. I'm not taking anything away from him. Good guy, but he should have been. But it's not going to change anything overall, except I think Russ will have a little more say so, maybe, and because he'll be up in the booth and saying, "Hey, Billy, I'm seeing this. We need to run this. We need to run that."
The one thing it did do, and a long time ago, somebody told me it was in the know. It might have been Allie. She said the big money guy told her that there's going to be an offensive coordinator differently next season. And that's what he had to promise somebody. And he did. And so I guess he's fulfilled that promise, at least in name, which I think is what it was. All right, Francis, go write us a story. Go about who this guy is, all right, and about what it's all about, all right?
What's it all about, Alfie?
Great job on your basketball coverage. We're looking forward to the LSU game on Saturday night, 6:35 or whatever, 6 o'clock.
6:30 on the SEC network.
Yeah.
And then they get Georgia Tuesday night, I think it is, in Athens.
We need that one badly.
Yeah, and then comes the 3-game gauntlet to end the year, and that's they get the Aggies, who I think I think the Aggies and Missouri are the two most dangerous teams.
Aggies got beat.
Yeah, but they did, but they still can turn every game into a rock fight, and they tend to win them. And Missouri, which I think Missouri's dangerous because if you want to run, they'll run with you. And they ran Alabama out of the gym. You want to turn it into a rock fight, they figure they play 12 guys and they figure they got 60 fouls to throw at you. So anyway, it's going to be good. And
when you say rock fight, I think of Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I bet them getting clobbered.
Yeah, the Fighting Mormons got him today, didn't he?
Yeah,
I haven't had the guts to call my buddy Bill Self and say what happened yet. I think I have to wait until May before I can do that.
Unbelievable. All right, go right, Francis. Thank you. Read him in Gator Bait. He's the best. Appreciate it, Francis. All right.
Thanks.
All right. So, Rob, I know you talk to a lot of the other people about what's going on in Florida. Tomorrow you'll get a reaction about Russ Callaway, and they'll say who? They don't even know who he is. But the basketball team has stirred up some interest, and you've talked about it a lot on your show. Who, by the way, who you got on tomorrow morning?
We're going to have Jake Wimberly, who does a lot of analytics and numbers out of Jackson, Mississippi, ESPN 105.9. Then Kevin Skarbinski, the only U.S. basketball writer, Hall of Fame writer from the state of Alabama. He'll be on. Doug Dean, myself, and executive producer Brendan Martin. And so we'll cover a lot of basketball, and we'll do some football, probably touch on some baseball. But, I mean, y'all are right. You look at these two teams, Florida and Auburn, they're very similar teams. Florida, dominated Auburn when they played, and Auburn went on the road. Think about that in this league. You get beat by number 3 at your home court when you're number 1. The next week, you go on the road to your hated rival as a number 1 and beat the number 2 team. And then now you come home for 3 straight home games. This race is far from over. I thought the champion would be 14-4. I don't know if it's going to be like that. But I think the reason Florida's so good is they've taken a bunch of guys that weren't one and done kind of guys that were into the team, and they've bought into the team culture that Todd Golden preaches. And that's why it's actually fun to watch them play. And they haven't all been healthy, but damn, they hustle.
2 guys out every night.
I'll watch that every
ranked
night.
teams without 2 guys. Real quick, let me jump in here and say this before I lose my place. I want to say to Rob, I want to say to Lauren, I want to get your take, Lauren, on the women's basketball team, and I want to get your take on what's going on with the baseball team, because they're 5-0 the first time in a long time, and the softball team, where you go a lot, you go to the games, so they got some ballers out there. So let me get your takes on those right now, Lauren.
Where we want to start?
Let's start with softball, one of your first loves.
Yeah. So the women's softball team basically had a tough one the other day, Sunday. I think they fell prey to the wait and see game, a little rain, and then they fell to Duke, who threw their number 1 pitcher, who was an All ACC selection a year ago. But I mean, the lineup is a who's who of Murderers Row. I mean,
but they also beat Duke.
Yeah, they beat Duke on Friday night. Yeah, run ruled them. So I mean, they're right where they need to be. They're out in Arizona now. They play in the tournament out there in Arizona, and that was kind of Tim Walton, which talks to the kind of guy Walton is, and you see a lot of players do that. Jocelyn Erickson and Riley Hortorf both are from Arizona, so they normally take a trip out to California, but this year they changed and went to Arizona so those girls could play in front of friends and family and that kind of thing. But it's a Murderers Row lineup. Kendra Fall be hitting in the one
runs.
slot.
How many home runs now?
Oh, well, gosh. I'm going to get to that. Taylor Schumacher, who's a freshman, I think she's at now 9 home runs in the first few games. Tim Walton says she's the best hitter that they've had since Amanda Lorenz, and I even think she's better. She's a better athlete. She can steal bases. She can affect the game in a lot of different ways. In the 3-hole, you got Corby Otis, who led the team in batting average, batted .460, kind of struggling right now. 4-hole is Erickson. I mean, you just name it. Then you got Reagan Walsh, who Rob, you might remember this name. You remember John Walsh that played at BYU, quarterback in the like mid 90s. No, he's that's his daughter. So played
I
for
remember it.
Mid 90s, yeah. So played for the, and then you got another household name in the 6-hole, White Chocolate's daughter, Mia Williams, who's batting over 500 right now. So I mean, it's just a great softball team, still kind of learning each other. They got a new third baseman, new shortstop, and Kenley Cahalan, who was second team All SEC shortstop behind Skylar Wallace last year. So, I mean, just a great softball team. Definitely a team that should make the trip to Oklahoma City and should be right there. They got home series against Arkansas, Texas. I think is the very first home SEC series. They got Oklahoma on the back end. So, I mean, just a really solid team. It's going to come down to the pitching. Keegan Rothrock is solid, but who behind her? Is it Ava Brown? Is it Red Oxley? Who will be that pitcher that can get them, if anything, 4 to 5 strong innings in the World Series and in the regionals and supers and that kind of thing. So if they could do that, they have Kara Hammock, who transferred from UNC Wilmington, having some control issues now, but she's got really nasty stuff when the time comes. Baseball seems like Sully has done a great job in the transfer portal. Got the great shortstop from Miami. The young man pitched great. Transfer pitcher really shut down Air Force this past weekend. They look great in the midweek, where a lot of times you could drop those midweek games. Took care of business up in Jacksonville. So, I mean, definitely, Sully's on his way. I mean, there's so many characters that come with that, but Sully just exudes greatness, and he's tough on those guys, man. I mean, that's one of the things that, he demands excellence. He requires that they understand the game, hitting situations and things like that, hitting runs. So, I mean, he's really tough. One of my buddies, David Kopp, helps him with the pitchers, does a great job, was a pitcher for Sully at Clemson. So they got a nice group as well. And then women's basketball, it's a work in progress. It's a young team. They got a big win tonight up at Texas A&M, won by about 20. I mean, my thing with women's basketball is just like football, just like men's basketball, it's a money game. And some of these schools in the SEC are cranking out 6 figures for some of the best players in the world. And Florida's going to have to get in the transfer portal and really grab some people because they do lose 5 seniors. If they can keep the core of Liv McGill, who will be all SEC freshman team, Miara O'Neal, and Layla Reynolds, then they have something to build on, but they're going to have to get some height in the transfer portal, and that requires money. So I'll do my boy Freddie Weeby a solid. And as far as the Florida Victorious thing, I mean, really, if we could get the same output that Ole Miss gets, I mean, it would be because Ole Miss is giving out big money.
For money in that grove. Money in that grove. A lot of money in there.
So that's kind of where the teams are. But, I mean, definitely softball, is ranked 3rd now. Yeah. In some polls, I think they dropped to 3rd because of the loss to Duke, and the other 2 teams, Texas and Oklahoma, are undefeated. But the great thing about it is they're going to get to play it out on the field.
Good stuff, Lauren. Good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, got a couple of minutes. Rob, talk to us we know about the basketball team pretty well, and things in the spring for Auburn. Are things on the upswing on baseball and other sports at Auburn?
Well, the problem with Auburn and Alabama, you don't have a state lottery. Okay. And it hurts, but you've got a really, really 2 strong NIL collectives. But Auburn struggles with pitching like everybody does and hitting. I mean, they're off to a good start right now, but I mean, we'll get Butch Thompson on the show in the next week. I love Coach Thompson. Just get his thoughts. I mean, these early, when you get into the conference, which will happen usually around St. Patrick's Day, that's when you really know your team, and you can't tell that much this early in the season. As far as football, Auburn's got to go from club sport to varsity in football. I mean, these last 4 years have been the worst 4 years since the post-World War II era, when in 1950 they bottomed out when they went 0-10 and lost to Wofford. My dad was there. When the new governor of Alabama, Gordon Person, came in, he took his oath of office with his hand on a Bible. The first thing he did was go to Auburn and fire the football coach and bring Shug Jordan in. Football's serious business. You got a Spartan culture there. Hugh Freeze, he can recruit, okay? Start winning some games. It's your schemes that you're doing. They suck. You got to get a quarterback. You got to get an offensive line. And they've invested a lot in the transfer portal and in recruiting. I say invested a lot because they have. Like Florida, they both built these $90 to $100 million football-only facilities at the worst possible time because now nobody's doing brick and mortar stuff. It's all going to NIL and stuff like that. So I got Florida pegged to win 10 games this year. Auburn better win 9 or 10, or you got to start saying, what are you doing? Because I look at Auburn, no coach, starting with Pat Dye in 1981, other than Brian Harsin, who didn't even finish his second year, has failed to win at least 8 games in their second year. Hugh Freeze won 6 his first year and only 5 his second year. I mean, you have to show discernible progress, but also think it's too expensive to fire him. So Auburn stuck with him. You better hope Jackson Arnold comes out as quarterback for Auburn. Alabama better hope Ty Simpson comes out as quarterback.
Yeah, a lot of people better hope their
quarterback. Yeah, but Florida's got
no.
The situation.
There's 3 or 4 value. All right, listen, guys, great job, all of you tonight. People asked where Ben Troop was not here tonight because he had to go do an event out of town. He'll be back next week. Lauren will not be in next Tuesday, and the guy on the left will be hosting that show. He'll be doing the show. Lauren's a bon vivant who travels around the world right now. So
George Plimpton.
I'm trying, man. Go take the wife and get her some sun. So,
well, you are traveling Jesse, is all I got to say. Listen, guys, thank you, both of you. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate
don't forget
it.
to check Lauren out when he comes back next week. And then tomorrow morning, Sidelines with Brendan Martin and his staff. Oh, wait a minute. It's not Brendan's show. It's Rob's. All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
No doubt. All right.
See you in the morning.
See you guys.
Appreciate it. All right, guys. Thanks very much for everything you did there. Let me just get everybody to bed so they can get their milk and cookies. And I want to tell you about some friends of mine that are very, very special. I wait until the end of the night because I like to reflect on these thoughts. You're so lucky to have good people, excuse me, who are speaking on your behalf and who are and sponsoring your program and believe in you. That's the biggest thing. And I must say that Joe Sorrentino has been in my corner for a long, long time. He and his partner, Mary Brantley, and Restore Medical Research is a very fine company. Everybody in Ocala knows what they do as citizens. And of course, you need to know what they do with your health. And they're always trying to get you better, whatever they may do. And so I mention the same subject every night because it's such a vital part to what you do in health care. You need those clinical research trials because they bring in people, they have a study, they get volunteers for it, and they're paid for their time and travel, and they give them all some kind of drug. Well, it's not necessarily a drug. Sometimes it's just a pill. But they try out some of these medications on these people to see how they react to them. And they learn so much about that, about what to do and what the trends are and where you're going. And they specifically want to know about Central Florida and North Central Florida. So they want you up there to take part in these. And they would appreciate you going to their website, Restore Medical Research, and check it out. What kind of seminars, what kind of clinical trials they got coming up. They have all kinds of, from measles to mumps to this, that, and the other. And checking them out and volunteer if you're able. If you get picked, you could make time and travel. So check it out. They do a terrific job. Excuse me. What I mentioned, I always do. I do this spot. For whatever reason, I seem to develop hiccups, but pardon me. The main thing I want you to know is they're good people. And I want to mention also Joe Sorrentino's son, Joey, who is a former Gator defensive back, one of Urban Meyer's favorite players, now an upstanding and well-known dentist in Ocala, Marion County. I'll be seeing him in a couple of weeks, the All-America camp to Marion Dental, and have Joey's going to do some work on my mouth, which is going to take quite a bit of work. And then also they have a Lady Lake, a bigger, I think there are 20 dentists in that office in Lady Lake. So congratulations to Joey. He's done very well. I want to thank them for their support here on the program. So thanks to our people tonight. Good show while Ben Mazal, friend, stood in. And of course, Rob, you see every morning here. And then Lauren Meadows, who's increasingly becoming a sort of a jet setter around. But we're glad for Lauren. We always do. He does a great job, and we're glad the people we have on this show. Ben will be back next week, and we'll have our regular crew. So we'll say thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Good night. I'm Buddy Martin. See you Monday.